Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Intrican, coming to you on Thursday, January 23rd. The preseason has officially begun, and it's a bit of a revolving door as RIFC has seen additional players signed and one of a fan favorite gone along the way. We're going to get you up to date on everything that's been going on so far this preseason and let you know that it is just 51 days away from the first match of the 2025 campaign. To go over all of that and so much more, the one and only, you love him, maybe you hate him, I don't know, Jason Carey, how is it going, my friend?
Not too bad, buddy. 4-1 out for the original extra time. Hashtag not an MLS podcast, but looking back, it was like a kind of important first step getting into soccer podcasts, something I listened to early on. And, even though they were part of the machine that is MLS. Like soccer media is great, whether like who's funding the bill, right? They had a lot of access to different players and, all these kind of dollars to spend in terms of production and all that kind of thing. So it's a little sad to see him go, even though admittedly I haven't listened to them in quite some time. Not really an MLS guy anymore.
It's your gateway podcast. I agree. I mean, talk about hashtag not the MLS podcast, right? Because I think for a lot of fans, starting this, like that was one of the only horses in town, and you have to respect what they did. I mean, there's several iterations of that team. Like I remember Simon Borg was just this maniac doing basically, like Jim Cramer from Mad Money. He was basically Jim Cramering MLS, and it made sense back then. It was exciting. I have to agree with you. Without them, I wouldn't be even remotely interested in doing this with you once a week, and they did it for 15 plus years, twice a week, an all-star ensemble. It was really nostalgic. I don't listen as often. My favorite thing that I still religiously kept up with when they were doing it, but it wasn't always a thing, was the instant replay where they would go back and like talk through the plays.
Those were great, yeah.
Like what did VAR get right? What did the line ref get wrong? The AR. But it sucks to see. And, the weird thing is they all said like, it's awake, we're putting the body in the ground, but like no one addressed why. And it's like, if extra time radio is the like thing the fallen sword because of the Apple deal, because of, Taylor Twellman's offsides and season pass analytics, like that'll be a really like not fun thing to learn later. But that could take 10 years. And we are not an MLS podcast, so we will not start. You've struck out twice now in the matter of the first 30 seconds of this episode. You brought up the MLS phrasing. And then on top of that, you continue to introduce death, like misfortune, and like just like not fun things. I went back, like the fires, last week, who was the director that
David Lynch
died? Like, yeah. Bro, like, is this all that's going on in your head these days? Do we need to get you out of a dark space? Blink twice if you're under duress.
If you start at the bottom, you can't kill the vibe, right? So we're already at the bottom, and from here we can build up and talk about all the great stuff instead of bringing up sad stuff later.
Call me a carpenter. I'm here to build.
Can't kill the vibe if there isn't one.
I'm going to start with a fun story today. I went and got my, like, I get 2 of them a year. I think I'm going to get more of them now, but I went and got my like dentist check, and I got my teeth cleaning, and like the hygienist looked me straight in the eye. Was like, "Hey, do you floss every day?" I mean, it's the Garth Brooks, the Thunder Rolls. He knows that she knows that line. Like I looked her straight in the eyes, like I floss 3 times a day, and that was it. And I mean, I know she doesn't listen to this podcast, but like I don't do that. I know what I need to work on in my life, and one of them is being a better podcast host and covering for your misfortunes of death and calamity, and maybe on my side it's a little bit better on the floss game. But I digress. Let's get into what people really want to listen to.
Fortnite kids could teach you how to floss.
Oh, how dare you! How dare you! We got some chats.
If you need a teacher,
we got some chats early in here. FQB of Quahog of Quality Control. Dom Dwyer is coming. No, Dom Dwyer is not coming to Rhode Island FC. William, our good friend from Sacramento and covering many places within the league. Hello, Matt and Jason. Tim McDuff, good evening, gents. Tip of the hat to you, sir. Matt Jane, anchors up to you, buddy. And Waldemir, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Isn't that, that I don't know.
Does that rhyme with Voldemort? Like, I don't know, man. Like, tell me how to say your name, and I will make sure I never butcher that again. as a once maybe continued public address announcer, pronunciations are critical. Ewan, same with you. Is it Ewan or Ewan? I want to make sure I get that right. But let's get started here and let's cover the most important news of the day, right? I know people are here for player acquisitions and losses, but let's talk about the biggest capital J journalism we accomplished for the week. And that is we have discovered, fans, that Hartford Athletic will be in fact playing Rhode Island FC. It's a home game for Hartford in their little air bubble fortress of theirs, not at the stadium, but that little dome. And they'll be playing on 2/19/2025. Undisclosed time. This is still a closed door. We're going to find out the score one way or another, but it will not be publicly known. So we'll probably still have to say it was a real game with alleged score results and see what goes from there. Jason, first question to you. This will now be the 73rd time that these two teams will face off against each other in official minutes or unofficial minutes this season. How do we feel about this? And second, if you had to break into this Mission Impossible style, how are you getting in to watch this game in person?
Preseason scrimmages are great, even though I think that we are probably playing that team way too many times, but whatever. It's before it, so it doesn't count anything. So at the end of the day, I'm all for it. Didn't they have like stealth drones in like one of the Metal Gear Solid games or something? Just like fly one of those into the building and just stream the game that way?
Dude, you do this every time. I keep telling you, don't bury our audience in that. Like, some of these people don't even own PlayStation.
Stealth drones,
Stealth drones. Okay, yeah. I'm in. Yeah. Just get the ones from the New Jersey area, infiltrate. What's our Michael? I'm not sure which yet. Michael, get on the stealth drone technology immediately. All right. Well, that was that. Let's move into the real business here. We got the joke out of the way, and that is it's preseason. We're no longer in off season, Jason. We are officially in preseason, right before regular season as that goes. Players checked in on Monday into medical. A lot of questions up in the air at the time. We were all hoping to see different players show up to report, maybe new faces. Obviously, one face that did not show up, which we'll talk about here in a second. And it was a lot of fun. So much so that, our fans, not Raising Anchors, but Rhode Island FC fans are some of the greatest fans out there. Like, not only are you guys a bunch of soccer sickos, but on top of that, like, your dedication to the sport isn't just, surface level. So we saw 401 CrossFit posted a video about giving a workout program to the club, and as part of that, like, getting back to business. And they posted this video. Now, I don't know if Rhode Island FC knew that they had posted it at the time, but 401 CrossFit didn't care. And so they posted this huge video, and it's got a bunch of faces that we've never seen. So I go and clip like I go through the 45-second video, clip as many of these people that I don't recognize and throw it out to the Discord within seconds. I mean, like, it was probably no more than 4 minutes tops. Leo from the Discord's like, you know who that is? That's Bernardo Prego from Providence College. He's a senior. And sure enough, and then once you knew one of these guys was Providence College, I don't know why I didn't think to just scour the immediate local schools like URI, Bryant, and PC. But then suddenly it's like, okay, that guy looks like Alec Lowe. That's a potential keeper. Cole Dewhurst was absolutely there. Now, people are all of a sudden saying, oh, great, we're bringing on more collegiate talent. These are just kind of players being invited to train with the team, to warm up with the team, to understand what professionals do in that capacity. I'm sure some of these players will be invited to participate in the upcoming friendlies, the more complicated and complex trainings, and maybe a few of them will end up in Bermuda. I mean, we saw, I can never remember his name. He's a Revs Academy guy, and now he's kind of like a TikTok personality, which he's lucky he still has that, at least for the time being, as a side gig. But Alex Scherenberg or something. Anyways, some of these players will probably come along for the full ride and then still not get their ticket punched to join the team. You love to see it. It's a great thing. But I just want to go back to the fans. Like, they are so ready for season number 2. It's exciting to see.
Yeah, you love to see it. 51 days left. Wow. That's not too long away. Time's flying. And then RIFC recently posted, 100 days till the home opener?
Yeah, that was a bit like, I get it. It is the first game, which may not be true, right? Because we still don't know what Open Cup will have. But on top of that, it's kind of like, yeah, but the first game is less. It's almost half of that time. Like, get people pumped to go to the away parties and all that stuff. We've got podcast royalty, Andy King from Orange County Orange and Black Soccer Cast. Welcome to the chaos. I don't think it's a bad thing, but
I
promote all of it. Don't just promote the stadium opening.
Yeah, but back to the topic here at hand real quick. Like we saw last year a lot of college kids and kind of free agents and whatnot kind of trial and hang out with the team, like you said. So I imagine that's going to be a thing every year until the squad is solidified. And it just helps having those extra bodies for all that training that we're going through, because they're going to be playing a lot of like not full length games, not, like full exertion, but they're going to be practicing a lot in the upcoming 51 days here. So it can't hurt to have extra bodies there.
I heard a great line in the last episode, the final episode of ETR. Iron sharpens iron, and that's exactly what sometimes this needs to be. Sometimes it's just the younger legs running people ragged and getting them back into shape. So I wouldn't know. I don't run, and nor am I in shape. But that is not the point. Let's continue to move along. I can't wait to see what else is going on. Some exciting stuff. We'll probably have some exclusives in the near future, probably by Monday or Tuesday, dropping some additional content as we get access to the team, because they're now back on, right? Like in the off season, it was interviewing anyone from the staff or the community that wanted to talk. Now it's like, hey, players, like Maxi, I got you. Like it's time to lock back in, as the kids say. But let's get back into this. And since you like to start the podcast on a low, let's just keep that going. And let's hit everyone with the feelings there. Unfortunately, some sad news this week. And it was one of those things where it was teased out to people that bad news was on the horizon, and then like I started getting the confirmations, and like I went through the Pepe Silva of like who could it be, and then when I found out, I was like, at first I didn't know how to feel about it. I was upset, and then I was like, oh, like we're losing Turney, like this is terrible. But let's get through the press release first. On January 20th, Rhode Island FC announced it had reached an agreement with USL Championship Eastern Conference side Birmingham Legion FC for the transfer of defender Stephen Turnbull, pending league and federation approval. RIFC will receive an undisclosed fee for the transfer. We want to thank Stephen for his contributions to our club and wish him the best moving forward, said RIFC head coach and general manager Conor Smith. He will always have a place in Rhode Island FC history. Turnbull played an important role in RIFC's historical inaugural season, appearing in all 34 regular season games and making 31 starts. He logged over 2,500 minutes for the Ocean State Club in 2024, scoring 3 goals and contributing to 3 assists, including the opening goal in the first win in club history back on April 20th against the Las Vegas Lights. Jason, we got lots to unpack here, but let's get that initial like pan in. What's your gut reaction? How you feeling? Are you okay? Do you need something? Do you need a minute? Like, let me know what's going on. Talk to me, Goose.
You don't love to see it. I think it's unfortunate. I think in like a sad way, maybe it makes sense though. I feel like when you started to look at the whole season, I think he started pretty strong. And he had some really like key games for us, right? He had some man of match performance against Birmingham. He actually had really good matches both times we played him, which is maybe why they bought him. And then also
if you can't beat him, buy him.
He was man of the match, I think, for that for the Louisville away game, the first time the 5-2. But then he did have he was never like bad, but there were some times when he was essentially somewhat ineffective and just going through the motions doing his job. And I don't think that's because lack of trying or because he's a bad player. I just wonder if maybe it's because he kind of doesn't fit the system per se. While he would never like outwardly complain, if you did kind of press and like ask him, he would always state that he prefers being a traditional right back as opposed to a right winger or right wing back. And that, he wants to be out there and play. So if that's what coach wants to do, he will play that role. But maybe he didn't always shine. And so that's why maybe we'd have some like really great matches for him. But there are other times that maybe he kind of just really didn't get into that motion. And the fact that because he is a good player, even his quote unquote like bad performances were never bad. But we maybe never got to see the true quality of him because he never really fit in our system.
That's fair. I mean, here's I agree with some of that. I I want to challenge one part, but I'm going to wait to show that in a slide here in a second. To expand upon that for a second, you're right. He was a right back playing in a right wing back capacity. He never seemed really happy to do it. But to your point, like, he's a professional. I mean, he comes from the MLS ranks. He does his job at the end of the day. I think the defensive minded side of that ideology shows in some of the stats we're going to bring up in a second. But to the point, like, where I kind of came from this, I kind of thought before we knew more about the transfer that this was maybe Turnbull initiating a request to leave the club, because, you saw at the end of the season there, Frank Nodarce kind of was displaced, right? Like, Dugan was doing a great job. Stoneman was holding down the right. Yao was never going to move from that center spot. So it's like, where do you put Frank Nodarce? And then suddenly you see him in the right wing back role, and Turnbull's on the bench for the Miami game. And you're like, okay, he's just resting Turney because the important games are ahead, and it's Miami, right? And then they go out and smash Miami. But then suddenly the Indy 11 game shows up, and Turnbull's back on the bench, right? Like, you're like, okay, something is aloof. I at the time, just like the initial reaction, I was like, man, he's probably just thinking he's going to get the Alves treatment of, I'm not a part of the wingback system. I'm a natural fullback. I don't have a home here. And let's be honest, like, Coach Kano, you can say what you want about him. He's a player's coach, but once you're one of his boys, and I'm not saying that he doesn't reward based on performance, but like, it's almost like, that meme of, like, you hold the golden child above the water, the middle child's like paddling for dear life.
Yeah, treading water, and the other person's already drowned.
Dead. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying Coach is that style, but like, you can tell that there's just like an affinity for the players under him that have bought in, that have drank the Kool-Aid, and are more than just professionals. Like, they believe in Kano the human being versus Kano the coach. And it felt like that's where Frank was starting to acclimate to. I don't know if Frank, if we had given him a full season, would have performed better or worse in the wingback system. But at that time, Coach definitely saw something special there. And it was like, this was the future. So at the time, I thought, like, okay, Turnbull's ready to like pull the ejection seat and get out of there. But then we go and find out that from Turnbull himself, he went around and talked to many people as he was departing, like, hey, this wasn't an initiation for me. This is all club business. It's the nature of professional sport. Sometimes these things happen. So then you go, okay, well, now we know this wasn't Turnbull that started this. So then you got to ask yourself, all right, Rhode Island FC and Birmingham Legion go into business. And for the love of my like thought process here, if you're an Eastern Conference coach, the last thing you want to do is trade or transfer an asset class, the quality of which Turnbull is, to a rival that you're going to have to see 2 times in a season.
And that's fair, but if we actually got a transfer fee for him, so I mean, in essence, that's good business there, right? Most of the USL transfers are free agents. So not only did we get the transfer fee from him, but also, right, he came from MLS, so maybe his wages were a little higher. So those are now off the book. So potentially, I don't know what we brought Danny Rivera on, because the transparency with the wages in this league aren't really there. But like, maybe that's not the same. So maybe it's a double whammy there. Maybe we saved, some money in wages on top of getting a transfer fee for him.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And you're speaking so many truths here. We'll talk about Danny's situation in this in a second, because originally we probably thought he was just depth, because remember, that signing came before the news about Turnbull. Now you're kind of seeing the stars align a little bit differently. But let's talk about that transfer fee. It is undisclosed, but we've talked to many friends around the league, good friends of the podcast. A majority of these kinds of transactions, especially interleague, for only about a 1-year contract buyout, they're typically around $20,000 to $50,000. That's usually the part and parcel that you get. Like, maybe Prince Sadie was a little less, maybe he was a little more, maybe Zach Harifa was a little less, maybe he was a little more, but that's the ballpark. And when you think about it, to your point, if we unloaded Turnbull's salary, which I am assuming, to your also excellent point of, he's coming from MLS, he had to take a pay cut. He's probably getting paid higher than the average defender in USL, because you have to make them still happy, but also come to an agreement, a compromise that, like, USL is not MLS in terms of wage. You're now unloading that from the book, like you said, but this money can basically pay for your acquisition player, right? So, like, I am not saying Danny Rivera was completely basically paid for the season. with this book of business, but it's possible, right? Like when you look about what these players make in earnings, you have to separate that from their comp of like living wages and then like their like room and board kind of stuff. It's not unrealistic to think that Danny Rivera could be making, I don't know, $45,000. And if the transfer fee for Turnbull was 50, you've cleared, I'm just going to throw numbers out there. You've cleared 65,000 from your books. Again, don't know what he made. And now you've paid for Danny's entire season. Like sometimes these come down to business transactions. I don't think this is bad at all. I just, again, I hate that he went to an Eastern Conference team because we know what he can do. We know how good he was. We know how reliable he was. And the fact that he's going to Birmingham, which, you know, you wrote this in the notes. What is going on with Birmingham? Now it's Trejo, it's Damas. Like this team is suddenly like Birmingham is now going to be a threat when last year was like they were the biggest pushover for us in the league.
Potentially too, but when you look at how long it can take a team to gel in terms of, you know, if you bring in a lot of new talent, it might take them a while and they may never even get there either. But they definitely look like they are going for it with the amount of signings that they've picked up this year. And yeah, like you said, it, you know, obviously I'm going to miss Turnbull. I really liked him. I'll never forget that first match against New Mexico United when he stood up against the guy and kind of put his head to like the hand to the head to like, oh, come on, come up here, buddy, and fight me. Remember the like the challenger? Like that was great.
Yeah, any player that grabs the shield, the badge, and like you want to go, like those are the players you run through brick walls for every single time.
But at the same time, I think we have to just understand that there is a lot of turnover in this league. And I think that we have to get accustomed to that as supporting this club because, you know, we were able to keep most of the club together, but who knows what's going to happen next year? What if we win the championship and then the entire team just leaves? That'll be absolute heartbreak right there.
But that's the cost. That's the cost of doing business, right? Like I would hate to say, yes, we're going to lose everyone, but at the same token, you won a championship. You did the job, and like
equivalent exchange,
basically. So listen, I want to end on this because like I saw a bunch of people on the Discord. I saw a couple of the different comments. Like after people got through the emotional impact of losing Steven Turnbull, people started going, "Oh, well, like was he really that good in our system? Like, you know, is this a departure that we needed and we didn't realize it yet?" So I went in and it was really easy because like when you think about what Steven Turnbull's contribution was as a right wing back, you know, and then you look at his foil or the player opposite him in that left wing back, it's worth noting that Jojea Quezera was one of the highest rated players of 2024, at least on FOTMob and some other indications around like Opta performance data. Like him and Nadarse were some of the best. And this is Nadarse as a center back, not in the wing back capacity. So I went back and thought, okay, if we had such a good left wing back, and I do remember at times, and we talked about this towards the end of the season, Turnbull started becoming that player that would like get subbed at around the 65th minute. He was always kind of like the first one to go. We thought that was to give Frank the ability to stretch out or drop Clay and like move some offensive firepower around. But I started thinking, okay, like what did coach see in his stats that like was an indicator that like this is a player that isn't performing to what I need inside this formation? So I went and collected a lot of data, and I'm going to throw it on the screen. I know this is the first time you're looking at it, so this may take a second for you to process your quant abilities here. But what's really interesting, and for those of you that are watching along, please feel free to jump in the chat here and break this down with us. But like what's really fascinating to me is like when you look at on the stat line here for both of these players, there is a lot of similarity, and the separation between these two's contribution is measured in inches sometimes. There's only like 2 or 3 breakouts here where I see Quezera shining so much more brightly. And I wonder if that's just because of the defensive nature or the defensive minded side of what Steven Turnbull was, whereas Quezera was like a striker up until he had to get converted. So like you've got a natural defender who's grown up in the ranks thinking defense. And then you've got someone like Quezera who's like, how can I remain attacking as much as possible and try to improve my defensive game? So I'm going to go straight to the stats that I think are the most important here. One is I didn't realize how many minutes Turnbull put in over Quezera, considering we would see him kind of get pulled, especially the like final third of the season. Again, that 65th minute, you'd see him out, but he still beat Quezera by about 3 games worth of total minutes. And on top of that, I didn't realize. I knew Quazera missed a few because of international break, but I didn't realize how few the number of games Jojea started and played in relationship to Turnbull. So like we have to use that as a mindset here, because this data can start to skew when you think about that. But the reality is this, man. The only thing here, like you had 3 goals each, which was really great. And again, we talked about the one against Las Vegas Lights that kind of gave us the first home open, or the first opener in club history, first win, I should say. Quazera only got 3 more assists. So like offensively, like that's great. I'm happy, but like not really a lot of noise there. It's in the key passes and successful dribbles. That's the only place where Jojea really kind of stuck it to Turnbull and said, hey, like I'm finding those key passes for chance creation because I'm moving further up the flank, further up the wing. And often those were a direct result because Quazera would take on a defender and he would successfully get past the defender. I don't know that Turnbull was as much of an effective force when it came to that. He was very much more of like pass, move on, pass, move on, pass, move on. We saw Jojea, like he was really comfortable in the skin running all the way basically to out of touch and then like being able to do something incredible here. Is there anything here that would warrant, when you look at this, because they're so close now, we realize how important Quazera is to the team. Was this a mistake to let go of Steven Turnbull? Like even for 50,000, let's just assume it's the high ceiling on that.
No, I think you kind of have to go for the money there when it's available. The one other stat I would point out actually is successful crosses plus accuracy. Quazera there has it's not a huge number, but a decent little chunk on there. And then also if you combine the fact that, like you said, about 3 games worth less of minutes, that potentially could give him the edge to kind of push it over. Ultimately, like you said, Turnbull is more of the defensive, traditional right back style. I think when you play the 3-5-2 and you have a wing back, you want them to have a little bit more of that offensive firepower. And I don't think that is to say that Turnbull's not capable of it, but maybe him preferring to play that traditional like right back style, maybe he never really kind of took the training wheels off sometimes, so to say, and that he would play a little more conservatively. And then you would have these games like against Birmingham, against Lou City, where we would have like worldies and get like assists and put up great defensive numbers on top of that as well.
I mean, I guess I agree to that. It's so difficult because you see these numbers and you know now that Danny Rivera has to do as good or better, or Frank Darcy has to step up to the plate. And like these, remember, like we talk about the Draw Kings, right? We talk about all of those defensive masterclasses that we put on, whether it was because it was clean sheets or not. A lot of that came through the defense that Steven Turnbull provided and assisted. And I just think that like we are going to miss that. And we realize very quickly, very early on, the legacy and the impact left behind with Turnbull's departure. So you hate to see it. I'm happy that he gets to continue playing, and it seems like he's going to be well treated down in Birmingham. I wish him nothing but luck, except for, of course, against us, because the fallacy, right? Like player gets traded on, first thing they do is become a terror against the team that let them go.
I mean, hey, Sadie didn't have a worldie against us, so who knows? We'll see.
Sadie wasn't given the opportunity. He didn't start. I have a very distinct feeling that Turnbull's going to start, and guess who he's going to take on that left side? Jojea Quazera,
his old buddy,
Steven Turnbull, Rocky 5. Let's go. I'm ready to watch it. I'm ready to watch it. You ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. So which signing do you want? You want the big signing or you want the okay signing?
Whichever.
I'm going to give you the big signing. Ready? We signed a head athletic trainer. Yeah. Big news.
Hey, I mean, not a glamorous signing, but ultimately a very important signing.
Hey, listen, I am not undercutting Mr. Langston Smith and his abilities. He comes from Memphis 901 FC, RIP, as the former athletic head trainer for that club. So this is a like-to-like move. Obviously, he must have been very competent at his job. He seems like he's already, doing a really good job of integrating in with the club. And Matt Del Greco stays on as like the nutritionist and dietitian, and like there's another part of the physiotherapy world that he works on. I think this is the exact move. I mean, we have a head video guy from Union Omaha. Now we have a head athletic guy from, like, we're making the right quality moves. I think this is good. The only question I would have for you, and I don't know how important this is, but like it's on my mind because everyone continues to complain about turf in the soccer landscape. If Memphis 901 was playing in a baseball field at AutoZone, but it was a grass field, right? Obviously, these teams all face each other, so they go out and they see turf, but they probably were training on grass, right? This is going to be a team that will train almost 99% of its time on turf, whether it's at indoor closed facilities, at Tidewater Landing. Do you think that Langston needs like an extra level of understanding and like acumen to understand how turf works on the body? Or like, will that be a sort of curveball for him? And yes, that is a baseball pun.
That is a very good question. I don't know a lot about the world of athletic trainers. I would imagine, considering a lot of soccer in the United States is played on turf, I wouldn't be surprised if he is familiar with it. I mean, I'd also say that sure, there's grass on a baseball field, but there's also a pitcher's mound and the dirt, and they like I've seen really weird things. I think it was at like a New Mexico game where there was some weird divot in the ground and someone was trying to play a pass and the ball hit it and then went straight up, and you're like, that's not supposed to.
I think an FC Tulsa game, there was a player's like cleat got stuck into some sod, so the whole thing ripped up like a piece of carpet.
Took it with him.
Yeah. And then like he grabbed it and like slammed it back down on the ground. He was so mad. But anyways, Langston, congratulations on joining the team. We look forward to meeting you in person and seeing your valuable contribution to the team. And because let's not pretend for a second that it takes a village, right? And that he's one part of the machine. And I'm just really excited to see what he'll be able to do in this space. You ready to get on to the other signing? It's not a big deal.
Yeah. So I mean, we kind of already talked about this, but we'll go into the official details of it. So Rhode Island FC announced that they have signed defender Danny Rivera for the upcoming 2025 USL Championship season, pending league and federation approval. The 6-year Pittsburgh Riverhound SC veteran becomes the 4th new signing for the 2025 season and 28th all-time acquisition for RIFC. Danny adds veteran experience and versatility to our roster, said Rhode Island FC head coach and general manager Connor Smith. He knows how to win in this league, and we are happy to bring him back to New England. Rivera has amassed around nearly 7,000 minutes in 138 appearances across 6 seasons with the Riverhounds, including the 2023 Players' Shield winning season. The Colombian tallied 1 goal and 14 assists in that span, and now reunites with former teammates Albert Diqua and Mark Ibarra for the 2025 campaign. In 2024, Rivera played 781 minutes across 28 regular season appearances, making 10 starts while helping Pittsburgh to its 7th straight USL Championship playoff berth. The defender ended the season with 11 clearances, 2 blocks, and 13 interceptions for a defense that conceded a USL Championship low 29 goals and led the league with 16 clean sheets. Prior to his time with Pittsburgh, Rivera played collegiately at the University of Vermont and played for the New England Revolution Academy, including time under Connor Smith and Carl Spratt.
I mean, first off, your reading
coming
is
home,
fantastic.
boys.
It's just fantastic. I listen. When I first saw this signing, like I told you, I thought this was a depth piece. It made a lot of sense in a lot of ways, which we'll unpack here in a second. Now that whole narrative is completely flipped on its head, right? There's a good chance Rivera will potentially be starting a lot of these games. Maybe it's still in the Darcy's spot. We'll talk about that in a second. But what I want to kind of go through first and foremost and get these things out of the way. One is we know this is not a one and done season for him with a club option. Due to some sleuthing from Defiant 1636 members, they found out from his agent posting on LinkedIn of all. You guys got to like lock down your lives.
Capital J journalism right there.
But he posted that it was actually a multi-year deal that was penned for Rivera. So we're talking at least 2 years plus, and then of course the club always will build on a contract option. I love the fact that this guy is a veteran of a single team. In this age, this kind of area where it's like job hopping is a thing nowadays. It's been like 2 years, and then you go get more experience, go get more money. Like the whole, let's call it noir of have a job, work there for 30 years, get a pension, die and retire and then die. That's all gone. I really like when a player doesn't move, because what that tells me is they offer a lot on the pitch, and then they also offer a lot in the locker room. For a player like Rivera to have lasted as long as he had, like, he had to have adopted Lily Ball. Like, he wasn't merely, a part of Lily Ball. He was born into Lily Ball. Like, he's become Lily Ball. And, I'm sure he can pick up other systems. Obviously, he played with Smith and Spratt at the Revs Academy, but that's a very telltale sign. Like, you want people that aren't those journeymen that go out and hop club to club because they have some talent, but they're not quite the right mesh or the right fit. I really like that we had this acquisition. The only thing I don't know, because again, you'd said earlier with like the Turnbull deal, we have very little transparency when it comes to the machinations of contracts. Do you think a USL player that has 6 years of veterancy is more expensive, or because like Division 2 is probably your ceiling, and now you're on? I mean, he's not old. He's only 28. Let's also not pretend that he's like out to pasture here. But do you think because of that he has to get paid more, or do you think like there's a deal to be made to extend the contract by like an extra year here? Like, what kind of business do you think we did here?
That's curious. I wonder if it's, I don't know what the CBA is like for the players. I wonder if it's similar to MLS, where the longer you are in the league, you start to get a guaranteed, like your minimum starts to go up. It's just, it's hard to speculate because they just don't tell us any of this,
That's fair. But let's talk about what he brings to the team in terms of his talent, because what I thought was originally going to be a depth piece, and why this works so good is Rivera is a natural left back or left wing back. It depends, teams have tried different systems with him, but he's predominantly played a majority of his career on that left side in whether a forward position or a defensive position. So the guy knows the left side. However, last year and kind of into the tail end of 2023, whether it was out of need or necessity, I didn't do that much tape on him on like the whys behind it, but Lily started converting him into a right back and a right wing back. And he played almost the entire part of that 2023 campaign and all of the minutes that he got in 2024 in that right wing back capacity. So what that tells me is that he's a player that can play both sides. I'm assuming he's left footed to have played so much time on the left. So he's just versatility now. And I think Kano said that in his press release quote. This is a guy now that whether he starts or not, Jorge is having a bad game, he's not making an impact. Boom, Rivera goes to the left, and it's a kind of like for like swap. Or you've got Nodarse, who I really have concerns at this point in time that he does not have the legs to make it as a right wing back. Maybe he's going to work on that. I don't know. But from what I saw in the playoffs, the dude just wasn't up. The dude wasn't ready for the amount of running that he had to put on his legs. Or maybe it was just the end of the season. I don't know. But either way, Rivera can then challenge and say, okay, I'm just going to hold down the right side of this. Like, we didn't have a player like that last year on the wings. We had a bunch of central players like Kofi Chumesi could rotate down into right center back or right back.
Push Morris Dugan out left as well.
We had Holstead, who could become a right center back. Yeah, Dugan could go up, but that was about it. Now we have a player who primarily will probably start his depth and then fight for his way to get starting minutes. And look, if I'm wrong and he's a starter right out the gate, more power to Danny Rivera. I hope that's the case. I hope that he displaces someone in the starting 11 so that it sends a message to all of the players that your position isn't guaranteed. You have to fight for your minutes. You have to work harder than the other guy. I love all that kind of stuff. I think this is the best bit of business we can do. Some people have been a little cynical in the offseason, the moves, the additions, and now the departures. Again, a team coming back almost as complete as we are. I think this is the kind of the best pickup, and the fact that he knows Smith and Pratt from his Revs days. He knows a lot of the players. I think he grew up with Kevin Vang to a certain extent. He's a little older than Vang, but like they all know each other. Like this is this just fits all the pieces. And if this works out, if this works out, Kano's a genius. If this doesn't work out, well, it's a multi-year deal, so we're gonna have to work through it for a couple of seasons.
The only thing I guess I would be concerned about is losing Turnbull. Turnbull ultimately only played that right wing back spot, but he is part of the quote unquote back line. So, do we need another kind of backline player? That I don't know. There's been an idea that maybe a certain Morris Dugan might randomly appear.
It's not an idea. It's a conspiracy theory. And you're all in now, right? Dugan's showing up, guys. I'm calling it now. I don't know anything. I can just feel it in my jellies. And if the camera was panned down deep enough here on the screen, you'd see me shaking my jellies right now.
And so, I'm curious to see if Danny does take that starting position at right wing back. I did like what I saw from Frank there. I think he had some pretty big performances against some of the better teams in the league, right? When we were in the playoffs there and Turnbull got injured, we went to Louisville, we went to Charleston, and that's where he played in that right wing back spot. And both games he played very well. He did maybe tire himself out, but maybe it's a little bit of end of the season, a little bit of I didn't think I'd be running this much kind of thing. And then also the linking up with Chico and Ibarra, maybe get a little bit of triangle offense going there. I'm all for that.
Okay, Phil Jackson. I will say, by the way, and this is not a slight to the communications team, but when they wrote the press release, they were like, Rivera will re-link up with his former teammate in Albert Dequat. I'm sitting there like, oh my God, Mark Ibarra has been traded. Because why would you omit the other guy from the same team? I think they forgot about Mark Ibarra. See, that's what happened when you're the garbage man. Everyone forgets what you do.
He's
the importance of taking out the trash. Like, think about it. I don't know when my trash day is. Isn't it tonight? I got to go put out my trash cans. Like, I don't remember these kinds of things,
holiday.
Jason.
Not till tomorrow.
Man.
I think, though, it'll be difficult to judge him based upon the stats because, Lily Ball is a complete different animal compared to what Kano was playing, right?
But it was
there are
times
a
back five line though.
It
was defensive first.
But would you say that RIFC is defensive first? I definitely think our defense got better as we went along, but there was also a lot of squeaky bum time there where we were throwing the entire kitchen sink up there, and we had the one and only Mr. Koke back there saving our butts.
It went both ways though, because remember squeaky bum time, we also scored a majority of goals in that summer of love where we were scoring in the final 10, 15 minutes. So we live for the dying minutes of the games. It made it interesting for sure. But I do think we improved defensively a lot. I mean, we ended up with a positive goal differential that was fourth best, sixth best in the league. That doesn't come without, a great offense and then also a really solid defense and maybe one game against Miami.
Yeah, I just mean that
galore.
If you look at his numbers and think, oh, he's not good enough. Well, that's not a great comparison. I think we need to give it some time.
Well, let's look at the numbers.
See how he actually plays with our team.
Well, I have the numbers. So you
sure.
say let's not, but we're going to do it because that's what we have a podcast, Jason.
I just mean don't read too much into them.
We're going to read all of them. So, okay, up on the screen. And again, if you're only listening, I can't narrate this. So for this part, you'll just have to paint a picture in your mind. But we have all of Steven Turnbull's stats up here. Now, again, quantifying it based on the minutes that he played, which was over 2,500 versus Rivera's less than 700. It's not going to be a full picture to your point, Jason. But what I want to kind of tap into here, and we'll move over to Rivera's in a second, 74% success pass rate, almost 46% long ball accuracy. Where I really want to talk, though, is not in the total passes because that comes with the minutes timed, is if you look at the division of crosses, he had about 80 crosses with 14 successful, 27 key passes. But look at his direction rate. And I didn't realize this from Turnbull at the time. And I went back and watched a little bit of the tape getting ahead of this. Turnbull was willing to cut in centrally to pass a little bit out to the right. I expected the right passing to be at 1%. He did enough out there to he was predominantly moving the ball forward, mostly left, obviously forward, but not a lot going back. And when you look at the opposition half, 63%, in the opposing half, that's not a bad number. 81 is going to obviously pad those stats because you're just playing the ball around. Now let's look at Rivera. A little bit different story. Long accuracy drops by over 10%. Success rate on total passing drops by about 6 or 7%. What's interesting here with Rivera, and this goes back to his versatility, look at the right side distribution. Now, I looked back, and for everything that Transfer Market would share, it mostly had him listed as a right wing back. So to have almost 16% of your total passing rate go to the right side of you means that he's doing something that Turnbull never did, which was overlap. I never really saw Turnbull do a lot of the overlap with, because like he always played so far out that most of the time it was give and goes versus like anyone actually running up the other side. So either Rivera is good at the overlap with Lily ball, or he's not afraid to cut in with the ball, take on a midfield, take on a defender, and then distribute into an open channel. So I like them, and this is not because he's a left back and he was on the left side just that one time passing around. I kind of like this versatility in him. His numbers are a little bit weaker, especially in the opposing half, but that could just be a product of the minutes that he got. I don't think that this is like budget Steven Turnbull, like we have Turnbull at home. I don't think that's what is going on here, but I also don't think that Rivera is quite up to the same step or leg that Turnbull was. So I still think we're going to see some productivity drop off. So if Kano and Carl, I don't know what Carl would have to do with this, I guess, at this point, but like if they can inspire and give Danny the what I'm calling the Zach Haribo treatment, if they can inspire this guy to be the player that they know he can be and the player that probably Danny wants to be and get those starting positions locked back in, this could be a really good signing. At best, right now, it's a perfectly healthy depth piece. Is there anything in these numbers that you see that we need to go over, or do you see, I'm going to flash between the two here. Is there anything that you see that like calls out to you between these?
No, I mean, like I said, it's hard to compare them in terms of they didn't play the same amount of minutes. I'm kind of excited about this signing. I want to give him the opportunity to prove us the type of player that he can be. I still have trust in Kano's vision. So they had some time together back at the Revs Academy, so he's familiar with them. So I'm all for it.
I did see in that last kind of stat there as I was scanning, Rivera has a higher passes per 90. So he's someone who is willing to take the chance. He has a little bit less of a success rate, so maybe there's some interceptions, or
maybe there's just a little bit of work there to do in the offseason.
But he's not afraid. So I think this is going to work out in some capacity. We'll find out what Kano's vision of that might be. Let's get into now the roster. So that's the addition. Some people asked, and I think it'll be in the questions too. They were talking about the Twitter post. They said, hey, okay, we've got the Japanese flag, we've got the Colombian flag. What about the Ivory Coast and the American flag? Guys, there's a reason when I find things out that I don't just go out and say this is happening, because until I have it confirmed, I don't want to start panic. Like if this was big MLS, like if this was big soccer and you're like moving a player's agenda along, an agent's agenda, even a club's agenda, okay, fine. I'll let it circulate. But like when deals are trying to get done and it could be a matter of like $1,000 or like an extra plane ticket home, or, like I don't want to interfere with that. And I have no business knowing or pretending to know what is going on behind the scenes with other clubs and stuff like that. So I'm still pro Rhode Island FC. I'm not pro raising anchor of like, oh, I need to give the big scoop here. I'm not going to say it.
Tommy Scoops.
I'm not Tommy Scoops. I don't have the mustache for that. So in that regard,
you didn't put here we go. So that's why they didn't go through.
Aaron, hey, that's on me. That's on me, guys. But having said that, it's one of those things where it wasn't confirmed yet. It was a strong inkling. I was told a deal was done for both of these players. One of them I went on to learn what happened, and maybe one day that story will come out. The other one I have no clue yet. I'm actually curious to see where they land and kind of go from there. But
so are you telling me we didn't sign Prime Yaya Toure?
We did not. We did not.
Man.
But I will say, with that being said, we now have 20 players under contract for the 2025 season, with Jackson Lee and Koke Vegas, our only two keepers. Defenders Hugo Baccarat, Frank Nodarse, Danny Rivera, Grant Stoneman, and Karifa Yao. The midfield, little congested there. 10 midfielders: Isaac Anking, Joe Brito, Zachary Haribo, Clay Holstead, Jojea Quizera, Taimu Okiyoshi, Maxi Rodriguez, Amos Shapiro-Thompson, Kevin Vang, and of course Mark Ibarra. And then just 3 forwards: Albert Dikwa, Noah Fuson, and JJ Williams. Jason, I guess I'm going to throw this up on the screen. You tell me, if we had to play a game tomorrow with this roster, this is what I've got for the starting 11 plus the bench that would run with the team. Let's just say this is Charleston tomorrow. Does this make sense for you? You've got Vegas in net. In the 5-3-2, you've got Quizera, Baccarat, Yao, Stoneman, and Nodarse. In the midfield, you've got Haribo, Holstead, and Rodriguez. And then up front, I've got Williams and Fuson. Your bench would consist of Lee, Rivera, Ibarra, Okiyoshi, Brito, Amos Shapiro-Thompson, and Chico.
Yeah, That sounds about right.
Would you change anything? Does Chico need a starting spot on this team right now? Is it crazy to think that the 2023 Golden Boot winner is going to be once again riding pine in 2025?
I mean, I think this is a problem you want to have. I think that depending upon the opponents, and we will start to see who kind of gels with who. And obviously, different teams play different ways. So maybe you're going to say, this team allows more space in the box. Perfect for Chico to kind of be that fox in the box that he can be there. So let's play him. Maybe at certain games, we want more speed, we want more physicality. So there's definitely options there to rotate out. So I'm happy with this lineup.
Evan says Okiyoshi played CB in college. Yes, he did. He actually also kind of played a hybrid left wing back. So versatility there. I see him being a Kofi Chumesi substitute. The only reason I don't have him backing any of the CBs in that case is because with Rivera on the board, Darce is more likely to slide backwards in that case and then open up. Okiyoshi could absolutely do it. Tim McDuff, I agree with you, but I hate that Ibarra isn't in the starting 11. Just don't see where he'd start over who you have. That is the toughest. I mean, Ibarra is drawing the short stick with Rodriguez now in the picture. And then Matt Jean, we can always add Paul Blanchett as the third keeper. I should have read it before I screened it. I looked for the naughty words. I didn't look for the whole phrase. Matt, you got me there. Paul Blanchett.
Got him.
Fun fact about Paul Blanchett. He was the worst rated keeper of last year in the entire league. So there's a reason Oakland Roots did not pick him up the same way they didn't continue on with Dom Dwyer. So
what a legend.
I said in the Discord, Team LaRue all day. All right, so we've got that done. Let's get into and listen, it's the preseason. That formation could change. The starting 11 could change. I think it's all right things, all right places. Let's get into some listener questions.
Real quick, though, imagine Connor just throws a wrench in it. And we just don't play a 3-5-2 anymore. It's just, hey, guys, check out this 4-3-3
back on. I'd take it. Although at that point, you're just displacing one of the wing backs, and then you're adding Chico gets the start. That's all you're doing. So take a defender off of the 5 and move up Chico. Yeah, let's talk. I'm interested. But let's get into listener questions here. We're going to start things off. Let me just get these prepped here. Matt Jean writes in, with the loss of Turnbull and 2 potential deals following through, do you feel that the team needs to make another move or 2, or do you feel comfortable with who is on the roster to start this season? Jason, what do you got?
Great question, Mr. Jean. When I look at this roster right here, you want a third keeper just for the vibes. And it's good just have a backup to your backup. Taimu Okiyoshi can kind of slip into that back line.
We have a third keeper. It's Clay Holstead. Everyone's seen him be a goalkeeper, apparently.
But I would maybe feel a little more comfortable with someone to kind of maybe fulfill to a certain extent like a Nathan Messer role, maybe like a college type student or someone who realizes like, hey, I'm here to train and grow and get better, but the reality is I'm not going to get a ton of minutes. But I'm here and ready if coach needs me.
Remember, Sean Carey mentioned that there's a youth product that he's been looking to acquire that would be with us for 4 to 5 years or 3 to 4 years as a development opportunity that could then transition on and maybe go all the way as high as MLS. So
midfield is stacked. I think we're great there. Almost too much, if anything. Like Tim had just said, like you hate to see like how does Ibarra fit into this? Lots of games though, lots of rotation. And a similar thing with the forward line, maybe someone is similar, just like an understudy, like a kind of college level player who is, ready to be there at the call if he's needed. But the fact that like we're talking about potentially leaving Chico on the bench, like you just want an extra body there just for training and just like a worst case scenario kind of thing.
So do you think then at this point it's advantageous for Kano to wait on any additional moves and see what he needs to reload with in the summer transfer window? Or should he go out like with, a couple minutes to spare in the deadline and go, hey, Revs, you got any Revs 2 strikers that you want me to work with for the season? Like what does that look like?
I think that as they're just starting training right now, he's going to maybe within the next few weeks start to get an idea of maybe what's missing. It will be hard to say in terms of like some of that maybe does have to wait till the summer, right? Maybe he needs a little more time with the guys out there to see what is it that I really need. I'm just thinking from a standpoint of, worst case scenario where some injuries happen. You don't want to be light where you're like, well, there's no extra striker on the bench because one's injured and now I put two up top and now I'm just rotating midfielders up there.
Morris Dugan can be a striker when he comes back on loan from Minnesota United. Everyone writes in, I feel the roster feels dysfunctional, but I've always been wrong with my takes. Hey, I don't know who's telling you that you're wrong. It's
Tell them that they're wrong.
It's so early in the season that it's difficult right now. Let's move on to the next question.
All right. Raphael wants to know here is Maciel is currently out of contract with the Revs. Any possibility of having him on trial?
I mean, for a trial, anything is possible. I'm sure there's a lot of Revs prospects that would come down for like a closed door combine. I don't know. Maybe this is going to sound crazy. From what I know of the guy, he's the dude that ruptured his Achilles back in like 2023, maybe 2022. And like, I just don't know that he ever got a step back after that. Like he was like this he's the Brazilian guy. He was this promising dude. Looks good for all intent and purpose, but like, you're 20 at the time, 2020, you're 22, you blow your Achilles out, you're done for a year. I mean, like, I don't know. Do you pick up a player like that? Like, can Achilles really ever be 100% again after something? I don't know. Is he a player that they could look at? Raphael, absolutely. Is he a player that like deserves to be with Rhode Island FC? Like, is this a proximity decision, or is this this is a player that fits the system? I don't know enough about him, so I'd have to rely on you. But yeah, sure. I would expect a lot of Revs trialists, again, closed door combines, and I'm sure we will see that team. We allegedly played Revs 2 last season in preseason. Again, that's where Anking broke his jaw. So I'm 100% sure. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a random like, hey, Revs, what are you doing Wednesday? Oh, just over here at Gillette. Hey, you want to come on up and play 11 aside? Okay, you bring the ball. Don't underinflate it. All right, what's the next question here? We got Taras. Will we break the Draw Kings record this year? And then also, what do you think makes for a successful season this year?
Oh, good old two-part questions. I don't want us to break the Draw Kings record this year. That being said, if it happens, I'll take it. I would prefer that record to be something maybe in a year where it's a down year and you're like, the team's good defensively, but maybe the offense just isn't there. Because in a way, it's a trophy of sorts, a record, so to say. But at this point, we made it to the finals last year, so like I want silverware at this point, whether that be the championship, the Open Cup, or the Jägermeister shot glass made of gold, whatever it is that you get. And then when it comes to what makes for a successful season, at minimum, we need to make the playoffs and get a home playoff game. I think from there, like I said, the fact that we made it to the finals and, the John Morrissey has labels as favorites, like that's a heavy burden on our shoulder. I think we need to go out there and win something, a trophy.
I mean, Nicholas Murray, the senior writer for USL, he gauged us at like 5th best team going into the preseason, like the temperature check. We were at 100 last year because it's like the default setting when you don't know, and we landed like perfectly balanced at 100 again. So we're currently in 5th in terms of roster construction and like the road ahead. I don't want to I feel like it's like putting a jinx on something. I know you don't believe in jinxes over there, but like I kind of am not ready, or I'm kind of steeling myself to understand like, hey, that may have been a Cinderella story in the works.
Flash in the pan, as they say.
Yeah. So like for me, the priority this year is like go as close to undefeated with wins at home. Like I really think transformatively, the most important priority in let's
win
call
at home, yeah.
I'm going to call last year 0, and let's call this the real year 1. Like you got to win at home. You got to be able to win over the fandom. You got to grow the community, got to grow the podcast, all of that stuff. And it is just so much easier when you can do it with a winning record at home, because like, let's get honest, the casual fans probably aren't tuning in to Nesson or to ESPN Plus to watch the team. They may go to away parties, but then they're going for the community part of it, right? Like there are a bunch of people that are religious that, you know, whether they believe or not is their own personal like square off with themselves. But a lot of those people, they just go for the community aspect, right? They go to feel
For the
involved in
vibes.
something, and yeah, maybe the positivity of it. I don't know, but like I respect the fact that like soccer is my church, like that's my community, and when we do good, it's a lot easier to be around people, especially the thinner skinned individuals who once things go a little south, like world doom and gloom, the world's upside down and it's on fire. So yeah, no, I think a winning record at home is my biggest priority. And then I'd love to see a playoff game at Tidewater. I think that'd be magical. That being said, you know, there's a person in the Discord who like dropped this like big news coming any day now. USL championship teams are not going to be happy. I don't know who this person is, but like I will tell you, they have often been right and they've had the same information that I have. I'm just usually like, I can't talk about it yet. I have no idea what this is. And like it has me wondering and questioning what could make a championship team mad? And it's either like Pro Rel's coming. Is Pro Rel coming? I don't know. Or it has something to do with the US Open Cup format. This is just speculation, no insider knowledge here, but the US Open Cup schedule should be out any day now in terms of like this is what will the format will look like, this is what the rounds will look like. And the only reason certain championship teams would be upset is if because of like size of competition and like if MLS pulled out and we don't know it yet, some teams had to go up an extra round so like they got the additional bye, or some of the championship teams, like let's say like the crappiest 8 teams that didn't make the playoffs, they have to start in like the USL 1, like more or lesser amateur Division 3 area. Like that's the only thing I can think of. So I don't know for sure, but you know, fans, if you know something or if you have speculation, throw it in the chat and I'll throw it in the comments. But the reality is that something's coming that's going to upset USL championship teams, and just don't know what it is. And I hate not knowing something. So we'll see if I can find out and you know, tease something with some flags and go from there.
We shall see. Tim here wants to know, with the outlook of a new RIFC kit looking bleak, does Rising Anchor have any new merch in the pipeline to raise the spirits of RIFC fans clamoring to spend their money on new gear?
So first off, I just want to be on the record and answer that with, we don't know for sure, right? Like all signs point that the club will not be doing a kit because we're now T-minus 51 days. And if you remember, they did the pre-orders for the road kit because they didn't even have the road kit on December 3rd of 2023, and they still didn't show up on time, and it was like 5 months later. The fact that I haven't seen anything, no one's talking about it around the office, leads me to believe that there isn't one coming for the beginning. However, I don't know if there's a third kit on the way, or like they'll recycle one of them like mid-season and like they'll try to amp up then. Part of me thinks that if they're not trying to capture it on the initial out the door, because you know game one will be sold out. You know that they're going to do everything they can to sell that game out. After that, how many sellouts we have that aren't like the big theme nights, I don't know, but like it's harder to like get people interested. So like you gotta capture that lightning in the bottle while you can. No new kit kind of tells me like, okay, this isn't happening. So to answer the question, yes, there is some merch out there. I'm gonna throw something out here. So we're gonna use the audience as a show of hands, and there's a bunch of comments. So before we do this, I'm just gonna go through some of these real fast. Revs 2 games there's at least pics of the Revs 2 games from last year. Yes, that's correct. Coach Almeida writes in, they have a great opportunity for silverware this year again, as long as we stay healthy. I completely agree. We need Anking back for that. Time to break Rising's win streak record of 20. I'm all for that as well. I mean, technically, how many games did we win in a row? We only lost the Orange County game on the back half of the season. So like, how many did we win?
Pittsburgh as well too. And
then Evan writes in, it's Pro Rel, thank me later. If it is, like, you heard it here. I mean, I guess it's Pro Rel, it's coming. But okay, so back to the merch thing. So for those of you that are watching along, I'm gonna throw this on the screen, and it's just an idea. We haven't committed to it, but someone said, hey, why don't you guys do scarves? And so I threw it out to a few select people, and they said, listen, this is a cool design, but like we don't buy podcast scarves, like we buy club scarves. So like, you guys tell me, would you buy this? If you guys would buy this scarf, we'll talk. We'll go into production. We'll talk to a vendor. and we'll see what happened. But like this was the prototype, this was the idea. So feel free if you guys say like, hey, that's cool, but like keep it to yourself. At best, it's going to end up on a back wall somewhere. I totally understand. We are not here to make money. Again, like the best case scenario we can ever get year after year is just being net neutral on like the server costs, the website costs, and the streaming costs. Like StreamYard nowadays costs a lot of money to run so that you guys can watch us live, because streaming is just apparently the most difficult thing ever there. We got a couple people. Oh, Laos is here. Okay, what's going on, Laos? I see you there. We got Anchor. Oh, Anchor's up emoji. Heck yeah, I'm in. Let's go. Matthew Jean, take my money now. I didn't put a price point, so that was $1,000 scarf, limited edition. Jason will sign it and put it around your neck for you the first time. But it looks like we've got some interest, so maybe we'll throw a survey together. And if you guys are all serious, it may be one of those things where like we need money up front to afford the cost. So we'll figure it out and go from there. But that is an idea. We have a couple of other products that we'd like to do this year, but we're going to wait and see when it kind of like how that kind of transforms over the rest of the season. To get through this, moving on with the questions here, Brendan writes in, which representative from the Western Conference do you most likely want to see as our final foe in the USL Cup final? I love that Brendan's already projecting we're going back. We're running it back. So which one do you want to see? And then which club would you want the most to have to travel to Pawtucket to tangle for league titles? So I guess if we are runners up, or not runners up, but if we are away, who do you want to play? And then who do you want to come here and give the smackdown to for a USL Cup final?
I mean, like I don't hold anything against them because I think they beat us fair and square. But if it were to be here in Pawtucket, I think it might be nice to beat Colorado Springs, maybe, if they still end up being a good team out west. If not, I mean, I like New Mexico United. They have a cool fan base and might be cool to go there. But also, maybe it might be cool when they get their new stadium. So maybe we'll save that for later. Trying to think out west, who else is there? Really crazy, all known West team, Lexington, right? That's
I think Colorado would be fun, but there's a part of me that's like, I remember the 2016 through 2018. Oh God, it's Seattle Sounders versus Toronto FC. Here
and
we
it
go
was just
again.
the same
It's just
over and over again.
It was back and forth, right? Like they handed the title to each other back and forth. I don't think I would want that. I think if we make it to the final, and I don't want New Mexico. I'm completely against that take because I really like that team and I really like its fan base. I would hate to do that to them in the final. Like I'm fine with them everywhere except for I never want to see them in playoffs. I never want to see New Mexico United in playoffs.
Isn't Brad Pitt a soccer fan and lives right next to the Monterey Bay game?
Yeah.
So if they were in a championship, do you think he would go to that game?
Probably. I 100%.
So there we go.
Okay.
We need a
So
game
you
needs to be
go
there.
To Monterey Bay, or you want them to come to
there
us?
We go. That way, the USL show can do another like live show there, and then Brad Pitt can be there, and greatest league in the world.
Okay. Okay. I like the idea of Phoenix Rising coming to us, and then we can say Brett's our daddy now. I like that idea. And then Oakland Roots. I want the Oakland Roots to come here and suffer every single time, forever.
For Paul Planchet's transgressions.
Forever. There's a sin that will never be fully healed. There's a payment that will always require more. All right, next question here.
All right, Rachel wants to know can you give us a fun RIFC fact?
Yeah, I can actually. Let's see. Fun fact. Gosh. Okay, here's one. Did you know that last year we took the lead and had the highest number of red card accumulations and yellow card accumulations per player in the league for 2024? You'll never sing that, Hartford. Connor McGlynn tied for first place with 2 red cards, and Clay Holstead tied for yellow card accumulation in first place with 13 yellow. He accumulated 13 yellow cards. So bravo to Connor McGlynn and Clay Holstead. Andrew writes in, see, I get the softball questions. You got the tougher one here. Is the 2025 as currently announced squad better, worse, or about the same as the 2024 squad?
Oh, I'd say on paper I would say before losing Turnbull, like we're definitely better. I'd say right now we're marginally better. it's kind of hard to tell without actually seeing them play yet. But I like Maxi Rodriguez is a huge deal. So I think that really elevates us. So like that's a bunch of extra brownie points there. So even if we've unfortunately lost a few squad players and Steven Turnbull, I think that if we can pick up another few guys to kind of, be some other squad players, I think that ultimately this will be a better team.
Oh, there you go. You heard it, everyone. Jason says we're going to do better than second place in the playoffs. So there you go. There you go. Andrew had two really good questions, and so I figured got to give him the permission to ask both of them.
All right, and then he also wants to know why hasn't Mark Doyle signed somewhere. I know there are some who felt his talent was lacking, but not unable to get a USL1 contract lacking, right? I have to imagine he's just being choosy. He can't possibly have no one interested in his services.
So Mark Dial, as you said, yeah, he's no good. But Mark Doyle. Yeah, so listen, I know some stuff about Mark Doyle. We're gonna wait a few years. We'll wait till he announces a retirement before we talk about it. But I will say it had nothing to do with his on-player performance. The reality is this: Mark Doyle took a chance. He came here from the Irish Premier Division, and he doesn't want to play in a lower tier, right? Like he's at this point where he needs to play equidistant, or in better leagues, he needs to make equidistant pay and more. The problem is that when you come abroad, and you don't make it in championship, your options start to get limited, right? He's not a North American soccer player. He has many a contact back in Europe. And guys, remember that the European transfer window is right now, and that might not be the time to bring on, and I'm not calling him a has-been, but he was a striker / winger that didn't really produce a lot of numbers. So right now when teams are retooling or trying to work on themselves into the second leg of their season, it's usually to build themselves, not take chances on undefined quotients or on prospects. So my guess is that Mark Doyle is being choosy. He doesn't want to go to USL 1, and he's probably looking at opportunities more closely aligned back to Europe that will help him, but that's going to be a summer transfer. So right now, I think Mark Doyle's just enjoying a little bit of a vacation, probably working on himself and hoping that he can find the right level of prospect for the right level of play that he's competent at to secure a contract again in the summertime.
Yeah, I think this is just a timing issue here, where the reality is for him to get picked up by a European team, it's going to have to be during the summer. Maybe there's possibility. There's still some time before the season starts that maybe he gets picked up by a championship team. A lot of that is dependent upon too if he wants to continue with this American, kind of adventure, or if he decides to, head across the pond and go back home.
Coach Almeida writes in, I hope Doyle's in talks with Tormenta to stay with Gabby. Fun fact, they are really good friends. I was looking at Alves's Instagram, and during his honeymoon, because he got married in a courtroom back before he signed with the club, but he brought his whole family on both sides. We talked about it at great lengths. They were down in the Florida Keys. Doyle went to his second wedding / honeymoon. So the two of them, and I remember when we talked to both of the players, they were road trip buddies, they commuted to work every day. So they are very close. So Tormenta would be good for the vibes and for the community aspect of it, but I just don't see Doyle doing that. I will also say, by the way, that we are very close to hitting 1,000 Instagram followers. We are knocking on the door. I was really proud of that. And then I went and looked at Gabby Alves's dog's Instagram. Shelby Paws is killing it on the Instagram game. We need to get our dogs in Rhode Island FC gear. RIFC, are you paying attention? We need more gear. The collar and the walk leash is great, but I need scarves, I need bandanas, I need dog jerseys. We that's what we're missing. We just need to put our dogs on these Instagram pictures, and the engagement will skyrocket, Jason. Skyrocket.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think that is it for our Tim McDuff writes in, Shelby Paws is the best thing on Instagram. A little bit disrespectful considering we are right here right now, but I will abide by it.
Not going to argue against it.
Jason, it's been fun. Once again, it's incredible. I always look at like the time clock. We're at over an hour, and we've not talked about a game. We've not talked about anything other than a couple of signings, a couple of losses, and life moves on. You got any final words before we send this off? We send this pod off to pasture. Are you bullish, by the way? I mean, I titled this Remaining Bullish. Are you good with this season? I feel very comfortable still. I don't know if I'd grade it yet positively in like one way or another, but like I'm not scared about 2025.
No, I'm looking forward to it. The only thing I would like maybe is the run of away games, but
builds character.
Yeah,
puts hair on the chest. Kevin Vang needs hair on the chest. We're gonna be just fine, everyone. We're gonna be fine. But on that note, take it away, buddy.
All right. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage, including RIFC, and that's at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RIFC Podcast, Instagram at Raising Anchor, and there's that website. Right? Anchor's up.
Don't forget to leave your comments in the show notes.